there's visual artists, theatre, museum and dance practitioners, writers, cultural producers and programmers, as well as social prescribing, link workers and other NHS staff. And I'm delighted that also attending is the programme manager for the Thriving Communities programme at the Arts Council England, as well as the National Academy for Social Prescribing regional lead for the Thriving Communities programme. So in terms of what to expect today and who you'll hear from, there are 6 of us who are all going to give different perspectives, different information, different guidance on social prescribing. It's obviously mainly through a Sheffield lens, but thanks to Stuart Cox being here from St Margarets House, we'll have a London perspective, and who operates from a venue rather than a neighbourhood dispersed way. And David Cowley is the regional lead for Yorkshire and Humberside. Okay. So at the end of yes, you'll have a chance to ask questions at 11 o'clock. It's very much an introductory session, this. We're really feeling our way with it. So please fill in our feedback form at the end to help us know what next steps might be. So first of all, I'd like to explain what social prescribing is. In a nutshell, it's helping people feel better in ways that medicine and tablets can't. And it's a way of improving people's health and well-being through non-medical treatment. So it generally works for people who are lonely, isolated, need support with their mental health, have a long-term condition or have complex social needs. So someone may come to the doctor feeling stressed because of their finance, their work, their housing, their health, relationships, and the GP can refer them to a social prescribing link worker. The link worker what's really important is the link worker gives the person one-to-one time to find out what matters to them. So they can connect the person with community groups, statutory services, so they can get practical, social and emotional support. And common activities which people get referred to are group learning, arts activities, gardening, sports, exercise, healthy eating advice and volunteering. So you've probably heard of green and blue social prescribing. So the green prescribing is about bringing people out into green spaces and nature. So is blue social prescribing, but that's more water related. So all of this is part of a universal personalised care approach in the NHS. And it's important to note it's not just GPs who can refer people to a link worker. Local agencies, charities, community groups, and people can also refer themselves. So in terms of why we're doing this event now, I think it's quite important to give some context. It's fair to say that social prescribing isn't widely known about or understood within the creative sector at the moment. Many creatives have been involved, many of you will have been involved in wellbeing activities for a long time, and there's a difference between this and being involved in social prescribing. The main difference being that as a deliverer, you become much more involved in the wider ecology of your community and in relation to the NHS. And you really need to be able to relate and respond to everybody in that web. The profile of social prescribing is increasing in the creative sector thanks to the efforts of the National Academy of Social Prescribing and Arts Council England. And social prescribing and similar approaches have been around for quite a long time, since the 90s, but it was only in the NHS's 2019 long-term plan that they actually incorporated social prescribing into their model of personalised care. So it's still fairly new in that sense. By autumn 2020, there were around 1,200 link workers in post nationally, and by 2024, the plan is for every GP practice in England to have access to a social prescribing link worker. And May will talk more about how link workers work in relation to GP surgeries and the local community in Sheffield. So the second reason we wanted to do this event now is obviously due to COVID, the need for social prescribing activity has increased dramatically, mainly due to the physical and mental well-being impacts of isolation and distancing. But we're now also facing the aftermath of long COVID, as well as ongoing financial, social and emotional stress. Third reason we wanted to do this now is that Arts Council England and the National Academy of Social Prescribing are increasingly committed to supporting the role the arts has to play in social prescribing. So the Arts Council is a key funder and is managing the pioneering Thriving Communities Fund, which supports local voluntary, community, faith and social enterprises to bring together partnerships, local partnerships, to improve and increase the range of social prescribing activities available. And it's especially for people most impacted by COVID and health inequalities.
Ruth, would you mind slowing down a little?
Yeah, sure.
I'm just struggling to, because I really want to get a lot of this down. It's really important.
That's fine. There will also be a recording available at the end.
Okay.
So you can have it again, but I can slow down, yeah. So in the Arts Council's recently published delivery plan, 2021 to 24, one of their 5 themes is strengthening our place-based approach and supporting levelling up. And one of the actions in the theme is to support community health and wellbeing, and that's through building their partnership with the National Academy of Social Prescribing. So together, they'll support and invest in the cultural sector. And a new more £1 million fund will be announced in January. That's in the Arts Council's delivery plan. So the final reason we wanted to host this session today is because we're in the middle of delivering one of 36 Thriving Communities social prescribing projects across the UK. So our insights are drawn very much from something that's a work in progress. It's very live. The challenges and the successes, both of those are feeling live just now. So we wanted to share some of the learning firsthand from people who are delivering those projects. Heeley Trust project, just to give you the picture of it, is a year-long project being delivered in partnership with the Handlebars, Cycling Shakespeare Theatre Company, and Heeley Plus Primary Care Network. And a primary care network is a network of GP surgeries in a particular area. So our focus is, they're all slightly different on the different Thriving Communities project. Ours is about engaging people with creative and physical activity, mainly outdoors. And we're working Heeley Green and Includeless. So we take a very dispersed neighbourhood approach, and we work in a range of indoor and outdoor locations, a lot outdoors. And Stuart will talk later about what it's like to be working with a venue-based approach. So before I introduce you to May, I just wanted to show you a few images of our project. I won't sort of say anything, they're pretty self-explanatory, but then you just get a sense of the range of locations and places and partners that we've been working with. So I'll just show you those. Okay. Oops. So I really just wanted to give you a quick flavour there, so you could see how we've used this investment really to work in a range of formats, scale and places, and to build a wider sense of community as well as individual wellbeing, hence the sort of larger scale events, which underpins Heeley Trust's whole approach. And Charlie and Tom will be speaking more about those activities. So next, I'd like to introduce you to May Connolly, who's a community team manager at Heeley Trust, and she's going to talk to you about social prescribing in Sheffield and specifically as well how it works within Heeley Trust. Okay, May?
Thank you, Ruth. Hi everyone. So I'm going to give you some context about social prescribing in Sheffield. I started at Heeley Trust about 3 years ago, and we had one link worker at the time working with what was at the time a different primary care network. So primary care networks are basically a group of GP surgeries who come together to deliver to a patient cohort of about 50,000. So it could be 3 surgeries, it could be 10 surgeries. We've put one of the largest at 9, but there are groups out there that are much more rural, and so they have a lot more, or condensed, or what have you. So the divide is 15 across Sheffield. There is money available to those networks to pull down to hire what they call additional roles. And so there might be link workers or physios or pharmacy assistants, and it's up to the primary care network as a network to vote and see where they want to spend the money. So, so it just depends. Sometimes they hire them themselves directly. Sometimes they work with a community organisation like ours who already have links in the community, and the link worker will embed with us. So there's 2 types of link workers, the ones based in community and hired by community organisations, and the ones hired by the NHS. They do the same thing. And they've also got lots of other names: link workers, social prescribing link workers, community connectors. Some people remove the word prescribing completely because it doesn't always make sense. But the idea is that it's a person that you can go to, have a chat with around this conversation called a what matters to me conversation. And the analogy I always use with the medical staff is, if there's a blockage in the artery, you've got to clear that before you can then work on heart health. So if somebody has got something on their mind that might be to do with their housing or benefits or whatever, we do that practical bit, and then we can prescribe them to things in their community. And that might be volunteering, that might be creative stuff, depending on their interest, stuff outdoors. A lot of people talk now about green social prescribing, but I think that's been happening for a while. Yeah, so all sorts of opportunities really. Within Sheffield, so there should be sort of a link worker per primary care network as an absolute minimum. We've got 3 full-time equivalents, which is 4 workers who are all absolutely fabulous. Each worker, whilst they are able to deal with anything that comes in the door, some of them tend to have a little bit of a speciality, if you like. So we've got an ex-dietitian, we've got somebody who's very experienced in sort of employment advice and benefit advice. And then we've just had someone join us as a sort of mental health specialist worker. They're not a practitioner, they're just someone who has a background in mental health and really understands that that can take a bit longer to get someone out to that community project or what have you. So that's a little bit about the context of Sheffield, like a really quick whiz through. So we've got Matthew, Maxine, Ben and Jenna, who are all absolutely fabulous link workers. They all kind of work in their own way, but there's a basic guideline, and that is for our primary care network, what we tend to do is work on a sort of goal-based approach and a strengths-based approach. So we sit and chat to somebody about what's going on. We have a conversation about what they're worried about and where they see themselves and what they would like to do. And then we can set some goals with them that we achieve together. We don't signpost without a referral and a follow-up or supported signposting. We don't just give someone a leaflet. We make sure that we talk to them about what steps they can take to make that phone call to the council themselves, for instance. So it's very supported. It's a way of building a relationship that gives someone some confidence to do things themselves. And so that's what the link workers do. The next bit is the bit of what do you socially prescribe to? And that's the bit where it just depends what's out there in your area. We're really lucky in that we have not only that contract with the link workers, we've got other contracts. So Sheffield also has a People Keeping Well contract, which is about providing activities in the community. So we've got both sides of it, but that can be really rare. And the bit in the community isn't always paid for. So whilst we call it a prescription as if it's the NHS and the drugs are paid for at the end, that's not kind of how it works. And for some people, they might have to pay for their prescription themselves, the same as we do here in England. But it does mean that we are well based to be able to provide community activities. So we can meet someone in a GP or we can meet someone in a cafe. And then we can, if they need us to, go with them to activities that not just we have on, but that we know about locally as well. Or citywide if needs be. You know, people don't always stay within their little postcode allotted area. And so, you know, if you're going to visit your mum in Stocksbridge, then you need to know what's out in Stocksbridge to go with her to, or what have you, on the way back from work or whatever. So we try as a network of link workers and people that provide the People Keeping Well contracts from Sheffield City Council, we try to be a hub all together. And there's lots of people at places like Voluntary X in Sheffield and in the department that commissions People Keeping Well that try to keep us together as a network and sort of learn about what's going on. Heeley Trust have been doing social prescribing even before it was called social prescribing. It was a place where you could walk in and you could get advice and guidance. You might get someone who would do some volunteering in the park with you. So we have a good range of community assets. And we talk a little bit about the Heeley model, which is about using our assets to support the community. And the assets might be buildings or the assets might be people. But what we want is to make Heeley and the surrounding areas a really vibrant place to sort of work and live and play. And so that's part of the sort of background of the team. I could talk about Heeley Trust for ages. It is a really unique organisation. We are really lucky that we have been around for 25 years. It all started with a sort of bit of land next to Heeley City Farm, and you know, has developed into a wonderful park that sort of replicates the Peak District. It's got climbing boulders, it's got a wonderful playground. So we're really lucky to have that space next to us as well, that we can go and frolic around in, as Charlie does. But there is other organisations like ours across the city that have link workers as well. So Sheffield Futures specialises in young people. South Yorkshire Housing Association has link workers in some areas. Dana Wellbeing, Zest, SOAR in the north, I think works with about 4 primary care networks, so they cover a lot. And so even if you don't necessarily just go out and find out what's going on in your area, where you might fit into that, I suppose. I can't speak, oh, well, I've got this thing to offer, this workshop, how can link workers prescribe to it? It's like, well, come and tell us about it. Come and give us a demonstration, give us a taster. Like, we're all in the team, a bunch of, you know, engaged creative community workers who really want to get involved and try things out. And certainly if our link workers and the rest of the team know you and what you're doing, then we'll, I guess, trust you to help our community, I suppose, in a really sort of small, like minuscule way of describing it, is that it's a working relationship. We work with our community and our community trust us to offer them things that are going to be beneficial, things that are going to be safe, things that they're going to enjoy, things that are free or really cheap. So that's another thing to think about, is that nobody pays for that end bit. Somebody pays for the link worker to do that bit, but nobody pays but by building relationships with us and having, you know, good working relationships that can offer good therapeutic relationships to our patients. You're going to be in a much better position in the future to go and apply for funding elsewhere, or join up with us in the same way that other organisations like the Handlebars did. Yeah, I could just go on, but I'm not going to.
Thanks very much, May. That's great.
Yeah, did I miss anything?
No,
I just
I don't think so.
All right, great,
no,
thanks.
I mean, come back to it in anything else in the kind of Q&A session, so that's great.
Yeah, I'll look out for questions in the chat as well.
Okay.
That's fine. And
there's one from Hope in the chat. Yeah, there's one from Hope in the chat, which would be good to have a look at. Thanks. I think you might have just answered it, but okay, right. Next, I'd like to introduce Charlie Hill, who is the Health and Projects Coordinator, and she's also a freelance creative practitioner who delivers a lot of social prescribing and wellbeing activity for Heeley Trust. So she's working as part of the Thriving Communities project and as part of a transformation project, which is funded separately through the NHS, but they work alongside each other. So she's going to talk about her experience of working on that project and some of the challenges as well. Okay, thanks, Charlie.
Hi, yeah, great. Thanks for that introduction, Ruth. So I'm just going to give you a little snapshot into some of the activities and some of the things that I think have worked well and the challenges and how I work with the NHS. So I'm just going to go for a screen share and bear with me and just show you some images while I chat as well. Let's hope the power of technology is working. Yes. Okay. So can you all see that okay? Yep. Okay. So this is just some images of the nature natter group that I run, and that is based at Heeley People's Park, local woods, Mearsbrook Park, and sometimes the Walled Garden. It's about connecting people to nature, exploring local green spaces and the seasons, people developing outdoor confidence in all weathers, and learning woodland and creative skills and relaxation skills. So just for an example, I guess we built a fire last week together to make popcorn. We do some stretch. One participant decided to share one of their stretching exercises that they do in the morning to help them relax. And this is kind of like a key part of the group, I think, as well, that skills sharing and making people feel valued in the group, that we've all got stuff to share and that we can all sort of learn from. And then we might do some mindful meditations, I'll make a natural notebook, learn about splitting wood or whittling skills or carving. And over the next few weeks, we're going to be doing some cooking on a fire, and some more wood carving skills, which has been based on the feedback from the group. So I try and make it suitable to what the group needs. And we'll be setting an intention together as well for ourselves about how to look after ourselves over the winter. So I'll just show you a few things there. I also do the wellness walks, and they're about working in sort of different places. So Mirsbrook Park, our Heeley People's Park, and the woods local to us. And that's about connecting people to the local green spaces again, and giving people a reason to get outside and meet people. And we do those at different sort of levels. So we've got like a gentle walk, a steadier pace, which takes in a few of the Sheffield hills, a dementia specific one, and a nature activity walk. And I work with the dementia community worker as well, Grace, so we deliver them together, which is lovely. And yeah, it's just sort of like also building in a chat and a cuppa at the end, which is really important as part of the walk as well. So an example of a nature walk might be that we do some tree identification. We create a natural picture using materials that we've gathered along the way, and we just have a cuppa and a chat at the end as well. Okay, so I'm just going to move on to this. This is our Wellbeing cart, and this was born out of me really wanting to get out there and get to know the community that we're working in, and sort of where I live as well, because I live in the surrounding area. And so this cart turned up at parks and GP surgeries and local shops, even bus stops. And we just popped it up, and we wanted to just chat to people, talk about we did it sort of like as people were coming out of lockdown. So I wanted to speak to people about their lockdown experiences and then gain some ideas about future wellbeing activities. So just asking people what they want more of. And we used art packs as well as a way of engaging people. So we had a chat, and we could offer them an art pack to take away and get creative with at home. And this was really useful also in forming a project later on, which was our Community Pots project, which was for funding specifically for individuals or groups to start or continue health and wellbeing activities in their local area. And that, just grew out of the chats. It also really paid off, just sort of chatting to people as they walk past. And now I see those people coming to some of our sessions as well. So it's great just to get out there and let people see you. Oh, sorry, skipped there a bit. And then this is a Thriving Communities funded project. And this is me working as a creative practitioner at the creative drop-ins. And this is Includeless Insight in the local community, Terry Whitehall. It's really about providing an activity to engage people and connect with, and we did drawing and making for relaxation as this drop-in. So we did, so it's accessible, no commitment, and everyone's welcome. So you can just come in at any time between 10:30 and 12 and do as little or as much as you like. And it's really about sort of starting to build relationships with people in the area and the partners, like the Tenancy Residents Association that's there, and getting to know people in the area and being able to put like posters up in the shops, and just making ourselves visible as well, and offering something which is creative to people. A session might include sort of 3 different art activities, always drawing as one of them, and then we might make like wire leaves or do some painting with natural dyes or whittle sticks or make conker mobiles using like drills and things. Try and make it varied. Also, this is really important. I think the most important part of this group as well, and all the other groups actually, is the chat, just being able to chat and sit down and make time for people. And it helps me also in my role to be able to signpost people to other services or tell them about what we're up to. So, for example, we had someone drop in last week and now they're interested in the outdoor group, the Nature Night group, and keen to access a link worker. So it's kind of like a really kind of holistic view and not just the creative activity. So I work with the NHS social prescribing link workers, and we have regular meetings, and it's a chance to catch up and make sure that we're sort of meeting people's needs out there in the community. I work with Sharuba, the primary care network manager as well, and we have monthly meetings as a part of the transformation committee project, which is social prescribed activities project. And also Ruth attends as well from Thriving Communities, and it's just a good time as well to meet GP practice managers and members of the community as well that are on the committee, and health coaches, mental health workers and health visitors as well. So I get referrals, these activities. I'll show you a few more images of our work. I get referrals through like social prescribing link workers at Heeley, the organisations. I've had referrals from Sheffield Mind and the university, and then just word of mouth and people seeing a poster, so the self-referrals. I think that really builds up a good mix for the groups that we have. So just things that have worked well, I think, is that kind of holistic view of me being able to deliver that activity, but also sort of see beyond that. And
Charlie?
Charlie, we've lost your sound. Can we hear you now?
yeah, sorry, where did I get to?
Don't worry, just keep going from where you are. That's great.
I don't know what happened then. So I was talking about the progression routes, and just that we have a participant that came originally as a Nature Natter group, and now they're a volunteer. We've offered some bushcraft training to them through Thriving Communities, and now they're involved in more of the team, delivering leaflets as well as volunteering at the Nature Natter sessions. So it's just that's a real sort of like things that have worked, having that, being able to sort of empower people to do more for themselves and for the community. I think the test and learn approach really works well. So the freedom to be able to change and respond to people's needs and interests, and also know that if you try something and it doesn't work, you just try something else. And with that comes like regular reflection. So always looking about how to sort of like, if you can improve it or tweak it, what we're doing. And yeah, being able to have the freedom to do that really. As I said before, I think making the time to chat is really key, and the activity is like a vehicle to be able to do that. Getting out and about and being seen, and working in different places, so we reach more people and we build more networks by having different venues as well to work in. Having options of like using digital social media and online booking, but also posters, and not forgetting the value of like word of mouth, so people have different ways to join in, is great. And then on a Tuesday at the hall, we also have like a meeting which works really well. So we get to meet like the social prescribing link workers, health coaches and mental health practitioners, and we're all in the same building. So it's just a great chance to sort of like chat and share ideas about what's working and what's not. The other thing, I guess, is that sort of being less focused on numbers and like how many people we have in the sessions, and more about like the quality of the service that people are getting. So that I think that really works well, and being able to help people make the full use of like everything around them, not just us but other organisations too. And then, you know, key moments I think in the past sort of like 6 months or so been working been just sort of seeing people that have come to us with some anxiety and depression, and then coming to the groups and feeling that they can get more proactive and active in the community. That's definitely feels like a key moment for us, or for me. And then a few of the challenges, I guess, have been not sure. I've got another slide, but it's not working. Okay, well, I'll just stick with that picture. So the challenges are just recruiting people sometimes. So we get referrals from social prescribing link workers, but it also, obviously, the word of mouth and posters and stuff, that can sometimes just take time to build. I think I found a challenge sometimes of working in public spaces like our Heeley People's Park, and how to ensure that people feel safe and to hold the group in a sort of safe and professional way so that people feel they can join in. And getting all the surgeries sometimes to refer and use the social link workers. So some use us more than others, and hopefully that will, as social prescribing gets more known, that will grow, and all the surgeries in our PCN will be able to will be referring to us and using us more. And then I guess just the last challenge is having to think about it all. It's a full 360 job, sort of thinking about the health and well-being of participants, delivering the sessions, arranging logistics, marketing, and checking in with all the team is amazing. And I've got a great support of my team, and it's also time consuming, but it's really good. So yeah, I'll just stop sharing. There you go. Okay.
Ruth, you're muted. Ruth, you're muted.
Thanks, Tom. Okay, thanks for that, Charlie. Okay, so moving on, I'd like to introduce Tom Dixon, who's the Artistic Director of Handlebars and a core partner in our Thriving Communities programme.
Hello.
So Tom, go ahead.
I'm just going to share my screen. Is that all working? Good. Okay. Hi, everyone. My name's Tom. As Ruth said, Artistic Director of the Handlebars. We are a cycling Shakespeare theatre company. So every summer we pack all of our set, props and costumes on the back of our bikes, and we cycle all across the UK, performing outdoor Shakespeare venues all across the UK. And that's our sort of bread and butter. That's the main thing that we do. We've been in existence since 2013, and that's what the main thing that we've done every year. Ever since our first year, one of the places we've visited has been Heeley Trust, and this is in the bike yard, actually, where we used to perform, and we'd set up in that bike yard, but then shows got so popular that we then started to perform in the amphitheatre. And so this relationship has been developing over 8 years. We've always been coming to the trust, and there's always been a great sort of response to the shows. People have really enjoyed it. And we started chatting a lot more with the staff, with May, with Frank, with Andy, and just talking about how we wanted to find other ways to work together. Now, when lockdown hit, we had to close everything down that we usually did. And so that meant that we had to put our skills to different use. So we started cycling food deliveries to people in our local community. And we also started doing online workshops for children who were at home as well. So doing sort of Shakespeare workshops. And this one was where we were making bottoms, ears out of plastic bags and things like that, just kind of keeping people entertained through lockdown. And it kind of made us realize that there was more that we could offer, that we could change and adapt the kind of things that we did. It didn't just have to be our sort of big outdoor performances. And then this fund came along, the Thriving Communities Fund, and we saw this as an opportunity for us to grow and to change again how we work. And so we got in touch with Heeley Trust, and they said, we're thinking of going for the fund too. So we decided to go for it together. And it was successful, which was great. And so we got the fund, which has now took us on quite an interesting journey over the last year. And there's been a lot of learnings for us. It's all still quite new. There's still a lot of challenges, a lot of learning, but it's been a really interesting year. So this is just how I'm saying before. before this year and before lockdown, one of the main things we could do was our shows, but also we did physical workshops, mainly at schools. So these were the only things that we did. And this year we've learned how to adapt that to suit different audiences. So these are just some of the stuff that we did this year with Heeley Trust, but I'm going to focus on two of them just for time. And this is the Living Well with Dementia activity cafes, which we did with Grace from Heeley Trust. And the whole point of this was about providing a safe space for those living with dementia and their partners or carers to come and have a sort of multi-sensory experience. I think the learning for us in this was about developing your practice. Often, as I said, the workshops we've done before have been with students and young people. They've been quite boisterous, they've been quite loud, running about, kind of making a lot of noise and being quite physical. And this was the first time that we'd ever delivered a workshop that was quite gentle. We were all sat round, we were talking through a piece of Shakespeare, we were repeating it, we were feeling pieces of pine or making drawings. It was all about a multi-sensory experience. We had people prescribed through link workers, but also through local charities like Heeley City Farm, who also do similar events, and Age UK. And I think just to kind of reiterate Charlie's point as well, we've had probably 6 people attend one event, we've had 10 people attend another, and we've had 2 people attend our most recent one. But that's not what's important. In fact, what we found in our most recent one with 2 people who attended is that the lady who lives with dementia actually opened up a lot more. She's usually quite nervous to speak in front of other people, but actually having that one-to-one care and attention really helped her open up and enjoy the session a lot more. So quite right, it's quality over quantity. And yeah, it's been great for us to learn about a new approach to our work. We're learning that, you know, just sitting around and talking through Shakespeare is something that we can do. We didn't realize we could do, you know. And it's something that people enjoy, and it's a good way of finding new audiences as well. So the other thing that we worked on was the women's confidence building workshops. And so we did these with a freelance creative, Sally Proctor, who lives in the area and I think is here today, to create a framework for 6 workshops that would take, or 5 to 6 workshops that would take place over 6 weeks. We'd bring in different practitioners from other theatre companies as well to help build the confidence of the participants. The original idea with this was that we would help people tell their own story. The idea that the different practitioners would give them different storytelling techniques. And at the end, we'd have a session where people would tell their own story, maybe over like a potluck dinner. But something that we learned on this one was about being flexible and willing to adapt the work. And Ruth was at these events along with Sally, and they decided that actually the storytelling event at the end didn't feel necessary anymore. The workshops and the work that was being done seemed to transcend this idea of having this sort of nice, neat package and this final outcome. And so we changed and we made sure that the workshops then instead kind of didn't have so much of a final end, as much as it was about these women then going out and doing some of their own stuff. In fact, 3 of them actually left and decided to apply for the community pot of funding to run some of their own workshops, which I think is just brilliant. But as I said, Sally is here today and Sally ran the workshop. So if anyone has any more questions about those confidence building workshops, I'm sure she'll be able to answer in the chat. So it's only our first year of doing this, and so we've had a lot of learnings. Things that I'd say to consider if you're an artist or an arts organization is about finding an important balance between the wants and the needs of the community and your desired creative output as an artist. Just to go back to the confidence building workshops, in our heads, it made a lot of sense to kind of build to this lovely crescendo of a storytelling evening and a potluck, but that wasn't necessary anymore. And so it was important that we adapted and made sure that that wasn't, that the desired creative output didn't come before actually what the community and the participants needed. And also with the storytelling workshops, that is what we wanted to call them. But in conversations with local link workers, it was decided that calling them storytelling workshops might actually put some people off and make them less accessible. So by calling them confidence building workshops instead, and listening to the link workers, we were hopefully reaching more people. And it's my second note was it's about more than the event. So our most recent event, which was the Dementia Cafe, we had only 2 people, but we were having a lovely time. Ruth was there as well, and Ruth, you were stood outside. We were in Includeless and ended up striking up a conversation with someone who's been coming along to each of the events just to ask and inquire about what's happening, and really wants to try and get involved in Heeley Trust, wants to volunteer, wants to help. So I think it's important to remember that it's always about more. Your event is part of a wider ecology, and the more you can embed yourself within a community organization like Heeley Trust and within a community, you'll find that the event is kind of, it's the nucleus of what's going on, but there's so much more going on around. And having Ruth at the confidence building workshops as well was quite important, because while Sally was delivering, Ruth was able to chat to people who might have questions about other things that are going on in the community, or the community part, which they then applied for. Consider what other skills you have. So we had there was a Heeley volunteer celebration evening, which we attended. The original idea was going to be that we might do a sort of private performance, but then we decided that that didn't feel right. And so instead we brought along, we have quite a nice camera. We brought along our camera and we filmed some of the volunteers telling us their stories about what had their experience of lockdown and of the pandemic. And we've now sort of synthesized those, edited them, and made them into nice little videos, which we've given back to the trust. So it might not always be apparent the kind of things you can offer a community or the kind of things you can give when it comes to social prescribing. And my final point is to be adaptive, like all of the previous things I've said, but to know your red lines. One of the things we've done this year as well is what we always do, which is our shows. And for us, the red line is that will always be the way it is. We will turn up, we will do a performance, it will be open to everyone. And it's important as an artist, I think, to know your red lines when it comes to social prescribing, because we can get to the point where we try and change what we do so much that we kind of lose our own identity. So things to come is we are hoping to actually build a sort of what we're kind of lovingly calling the Tree Theatre. It's a space in Heeley Park, so that people can, we're doing this with Studio Pulpo, who are a Sheffield architectural social enterprise. And this was a design mocked up by students from the University of Sheffield. And we want to create a space that will be used for more social prescribing and more arts events, both theatre and otherwise. And kind of a bit more to kind of go back to what Charlie was saying about providing a space when you're out in these parks, which is safe and which can kind of help everyone kind of come together. As I said, we're still learning. It's only year 1, and I'll happily answer any questions about any of what we've done. But what we've really been enjoying is just making stronger connections with staff at the Heeley Trust, with link workers, and with the Heeley community. Thanks very much.
Thank you, Tom. Thanks very much. That was really useful. Okay, so you've had kind of quite a good Sheffield overview and insight now of kind of working on social prescribing projects. And so I'd like to introduce now Stuart Cox, who's the Director of Arts and Wellbeing at St Margaret's House. And we invited Stuart specifically because they work very much, it's a venue-based approach. Okay, thanks, Stuart.
Hello everyone, my name is Stuart. First of all, thank you so much for inviting me to your meeting. It's really it's fascinating and wonderful to see all the great work going on. So yeah, a really big thank you. I am the Arts and Wellbeing Director and Deputy CEO at St Margaret's House. We are a venue, we are in London, and it's hard to explain what we are. So I'm just going to show you. I'm going to share my screen, and as I chat, I am going to show a little bit of film, which I hope gives a sense of kind of the venue and what we do. St Margaret's House actually started in 1889. It's part of the East End settlement movement of Oxford University, sort of addressing the kind of slums of London. And it's been doing that sort of ever since, and serving the community, and was actually a housing project for women. And actually people lived at St Margarets House in many, many different rooms. You can see we've got all sorts of different spaces, like a chapel and different rooms. People lived up there until the kind of 1990s, and when we became an arts and wellbeing charity. Now we actually have 20 to 25 to 30 charities based within our venue. So it's a really, really exciting place to be in it, and it's a really sort of exciting hub. And these charities include everything from kind of a women's mental health charity, Bangladeshi Parents and Carers Association, Fevered Sleep, which is a theatre company that works nationally, Freshwater Theatre, which takes workshops to schools, all sorts of wellbeing and arts charities, and that is our kind of theme there. I'm just going to go back. I hope that gives you a kind of sense of the space, and it's a really, really interesting kind of hub of activity. And, you know, as a venue, we're very much a non-traditional space. So you kind of saw in the film maybe that we have a chapel, we have a great hall, we have a cafe, we actually have 3 shops on the street. And all of these are venues for us. They're actually where we deliver our own arts and wellbeing program as well. Our arts and wellbeing program has kind of developed from the community and is a mix of all sorts of art forms and different acts. We have theatre, we have music, we have dance, we have everything from yoga, acupuncture, visual arts. So it's a really, really exciting, buzzy place to be. We were delighted to be one of the kind of 36 Thriving Communities projects, and we applied for our project. There's just some more images here of some activities at St Margarets House. We applied. We could sense that something was going on with social prescribing in our venue, and we could see different activities were having kind of elements of social prescribing there, and we were fascinated. Being an arts and wellbeing charity, we really, really, really wanted to explore that. So what was really interesting, when I arrived at St Margarets House, one of the things I sort of sought to do is look at why this was happening, and look at the avenues where this was happening, and look to see how we could develop it. And through talking with different organisations and through talking with different sort of arts charities, and also an organisation called London Arts and Health, which is an organisation which brings the kind of arts and health sector together, we actually managed to kind of like form a little network of partnership, which enabled us to create our project, which is called the Health Tree. And that is our Thriving Communities project. It's a very interesting project. As the previous speaker was saying, it's very, very new for us, and the Thriving Communities Fund there's a lot that kind of, you know, is quite experimental, but also it's just very, very exciting. There are 2 kind of major elements to our project, and one is very much around the partnership and the delivery of activities that we're doing that, and we're doing that across Bethnal Green. So although we're a venue, we are taking the work outside, be it through walks. We are delivering with other partner venues like Tower Hamlets Carers Centre. There's another community centre called the Brady Arts Centre, and we are, even though we are a venue, sharing that across the borough, which is really interesting and exciting for us. Our main partnerships in our project in the Health Tree are Social Action for Health, and they are a great organisation because they address health inequalities in the East End. Spare Tyre Theatre, who I'm sure some of you may have heard of, they work nationally, they're an amazing theatre company. Fevered Sleep Theatre, Outside Edge Theatre, and the London Arts and Health Forum, and the Tower Hamlets GP Care Service. So it's very much a kind of cultural organisations working together, but working together with health organisations as well. Our activities are broad in our project. We have a My Moves cultural dance project. We have art therapy, Pilates, yoga, massage and acupuncture. We have a woodwork for wellbeing. We have wellbeing walks. We're just about to start a COVID cafe, which is kind of a bit similar to Dementia cafe approach for local people recovering from COVID. We have ways to wellbeing theatre workshops and free legal advice. And I think that has been quite a challenge of the project because there's so many different activities happening. But what's been really joyous is actually lots of different organizations coming together to deliver it. And that's been really, really exciting. I've been listening to the conversation, also seeing the chat and seeing this conversation around numbers and the value of kind of, is it about kind of lots of people attending, or is it, you know, smaller numbers? And we've experienced the same, actually. We've had some of our best outcomes. For example, our art therapy group is a small group. Our legal advice is a one-on-one.
Stuart, the sound's just gone.
Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Sorry about that. I don't know what happened. So I think that kind of is definitely, I think it is about quality over quantity and worrying about numbers. And this project has really highlighted that as well. One other element, which is why I was really excited to be invited today to your meeting, and one of the key, I think, really positive things that has come from the health tree and the thriving communities is the opportunity to create a network. And that was a real key piece in our project. And it's really delightful to see this conversation today where people are able to ask questions and all the questions they want. And in our project, we have regular network meetings, not dissimilar to this, actually. We're delivering 6, and they are for anyone with an interest in social prescribing. So again, what we're doing is creating a kind of forum and an opportunity for people to be able to ask questions, and we're finding that is really valued. So one of the key moments we had in one of our network meetings was actually everything you wanted to ask a social prescriber but were afraid to ask kind of moment, you know, real Q&A, and that was hugely successful. Also, it's an opportunity to learn about other projects as well. So although some of the projects are not kind of funded directly by the Thriving Communities project, we've actually been able to find a space for other projects to come in, talk about what they do, network, and actually create relationships with social prescribers themselves. And that's been very, very positive. We've also been able to kind of do public events. We actually had our first face-to-face public event in October, which was amazing. And again, that was about raising awareness of what social prescribing is for anyone, even not related members of the public, to come in and have a space to ask and find out what was going on in their community. One of the things that we've really enjoyed about these is that whatever your place in it, whether you be funder, whether you be NHS, whether you be GP, whether you be an artist, whether you be a resident, whether you be a beneficiary, them space, that event in particular was a real moment. It didn't matter who you are, it was just so many conversations and learning happening within the room, and that was really, really exciting to see. Another element of our project is a subgroup where, even though we're aware that, like for our Thriving Communities project, it's 1 year funding, we're really excited about what's happening, and we've managed to find some space to kind of talk and think about the future and develop relationships. Some of the things that's been really interesting from that is that we've managed to create a bit of a relationship with the Mayor of London, who's kind of looked at the health tree and seen what's going on. So, oh, that's quite interesting. And they've actually just commissioned us to do a bit more research on our project, but also see how that links with something they're looking at, which is the idea around a creative health zone. And so that's been very interesting to kind of look at that. I was asked to sort of think about in this presentation the success and challenges, so here they are. So for us, having a venue is a huge piece of luck. And one of the things that we're able to do is kind of, you know, it brings a center point to the project, I suppose. And obviously with space, we're able to be, you know, share space, give space. And so there's a strength there. I have to really champion London Arts in Health because of what they do. They're bringing the kind of cultural sector and health sector together. But also what I've really found useful is, you know, my role as part of this project is leading this, and sometimes I just don't know what's going on. You know, this idea around, you know, which has come up earlier, around all the different languages, you know, words for kind of community connectors, link workers, all of those kind of things can be really challenging. And also where things are going, and NHS and acronyms and all of those kind of things. Understanding that can be really hard. So having a space to go to and say, I don't know what's going on is really, really useful. creating this, I think, as I mentioned previously, I think one of the things that's been good about our project is creating a space for people to ask questions, which is great what you're doing today, and more of that, and discuss and say things. There was I could see a conversation around being paid and artists being paid, and believe me, that conversation is replicated, you know, in some of our conversations as well. Yeah, and also just to increase understanding and dialogue between social prescribing service and providers, just the opportunity to ask questions, have a conversation. We've had moments where, and I sort of spoke to Ruth about this when we were chatting, where some of the most powerful stuff is not happening within the deliverables of the activities, but around it. So conversations that are captured on staircases where you introduce someone to somebody else, between a social prescriber, a link worker, and an artist. That's been really, really good to do. Awareness and understanding that referrals don't just happen from a formal route. So when we started our project, we got so in to the Tower Hamlets GP care system, which we were told about. They must get on the system, you must get on the system. And we've done all of that. And then we thought, well, not much is happening. But then we realized that actually it's so much more than that. And I think people have mentioned getting out there, having conversations, doing those things, and also awareness that it's not just the one route, but actually we've found that referrals are happening from all sorts of different places, like Mind, and in our case, a church, which was really, really interesting. And just the partnership between different sectors. We're really enjoying the conversation between the health sector and the arts sector, and that is really, really lovely. One of the things we've been really lucky with, I think Tower Hamlets GP Cares have been amazing partners and been really open to the project. Challenges, I mentioned language acronyms, health jargon, sometimes can be overwhelming. It looks different. Social prescribing is different in every area. So in London, you have many boroughs, and in every borough, it's different. It's delivered in a different way, and that's replicated everywhere. That's hard to sort of get your head around sometimes. As we've talked about, the funding of the activities themselves, you know, we're aware that the social prescribers and linguists don't fund the activity. So, how do we overcome that? I definitely believe that partnership working is a key element to that, because that's where our thriving communities opportunity come from, and it's through that bringing together of partners that made that happen. And then how do we measure the impact of what we're doing? One of the things that we're discussing is there's all these different activities being delivered by different groups and different organizations. We all have different ways of monitoring and evaluating. And also there's what is more useful? Is it more useful about numbers and kind of, you know, quantitative data, or is it qualitative? What we're finding through our conversations is that qualitative is more powerful, and visual, images, film seems to be the thing that's coming out as that people are responding to, including link workers and GPs. So that's been really, really interesting for us. And finding out what social prescribers need. What kind of information do they need to be able to refer? Ruth asked me how we found our groove. I love that. So yeah, so that's the title of the next screen. So I suppose if we had to describe how we found our groove, is, you know, we got caught up at the start with the formal route, the clarity, the systems, and actually what we found is it is the personal approach. So one key moment for us that broke something in our relationship with link workers and social prescribers is coming out of COVID. Tower Hamlets GP Care said, oh, we need a space to have a meeting for our social prescribers, our first one. That's what we were really lucky as a venue to be able to do. And providing that space and able to be face to face, talk about what we do, talk about the project, that really broke something for that day. You know, and giving my personal email and going beyond the formal kind of route really did sort of open the project up for us. We celebrate all referrals that are happening within our work, wherever they come from, whether that be self-referral. It was really delightful to hear that another kind of local community group was referring to our project as well. And when you're doing, one of the things that we found is in our event, so there was a mix of social prescribers, artists, all sorts, and Outside Edge Theatre did an interactive workshop to show and involve people in what they do within a meeting. One of the things that's come out from Social Action for Health, our health partner, is they say, oh, we love this project because the meetings are so much better, they're so much more exciting. And so being visual and doing that has really sort of helped. Yeah, and I think some of the things that have been really lucky is that through the network meetings and through the events is that finding a space where everyone can come together and connect regardless of what their role is within this has been something really useful as well. Yeah, I think that's it. And I think here is some nice pictures of our big kind of event, our first face-to-face event, which was really lovely. National Academy for Social Prescribing came, the Arts Council came. So it was really lovely to have that support. And yeah, and you can see in these photos, what actually is really interesting is that the people getting up involved in these moments are a mix of link workers, and people from the community and artists. So that's really, really lovely to see. Yeah, that's me. I'm going to stop sharing. So I hope that was useful, and thank you so much for inviting me.
Brilliant, really useful, Stuart. Thank you. I think the kind of networking, that talking about the space in between is really important, crucial, and the partnership working. So thanks very much. Okay, I think David Cowan has joined the meeting. I'm just aware I want to leave plenty of time for questions. It's 11:05. So David, are you happy to introduce yourself and just give us maybe any reflections from what you've seen in terms of kind of creative activities, the role of creative activities in social prescribing, and the different, just maybe a recap on the different kinds of social prescribing?
Yeah. Hello, Ruth. Hello, everyone. Really nice to be here, and thank you very much for the invitation. My name's David Cowan. I am unable to share at the moment, so I'm hoping that I will be given the power in just a moment, and I will bring up a few slides. I'm one of the regional facilitators, one of the regional learning coordinators for the Yorkshire and Humber Social Prescribing Network. Background, voluntary sector, 10 years before I came over to work for the NHS. I'm now at NHS England 2 days a week for the regional social prescribing role. And I do some other work for general practice on something called Time for Care, which is about quality improvement. How can we help improve the processes and the systems, improve access to general practice? I am going to just quickly show you a few slides. Really just to sort of give you a bit of an overview and how that links to some of the things that we've heard from today. 1,000 additional link workers in place by 2021. 4,500 additional link workers in place by 23-24. That's the target. How are we going to get there? We need to be looking at supporting community members to apply. We need to be looking at nurturing those volunteers. We know now from 85 applications for a link worker post, we've gone down to 2 or 3. We're probably competing with Amazon's sign-on bonus. There are workforce challenges through Brexit, through COVID-related issues, so we know that's a challenge. We've got to think about the levels of social prescribing. So first being signposting. Reception play a really valuable role in this, but social prescribing as active signposting, it is the first level. It is not social prescribing in its holistic form, but it does provide information when a patient rings up. If you've got a stress or an anxiety, is it housing? Is it loneliness? Is it benefits and welfare advice? Because actually what you need is not a GP appointment, you need a link worker appointment. And that's where the social prescribing as signposting is at first level. And reception can then book into link work. We know Social Prescribing Light is that voluntary sector infrastructure organisation, often providing information run by the voluntary sector, addressing a specific need. If you ring up and you want to find a activity and you know what that is, that's where you might go. And then we've got some further levels that perhaps link more to the work that Tom Dixon was talking about from Handlebars in terms of sort of drama-based activities, where we've seen, for example, the social prescribing holistic, the Wired for Wellbeing, and the kind of the drama that went alongside telling the story about some of those, what those wired sculptures meant, which was a great piece of work led by a social prescribing service in Wakefield, which was micro-commissioned alongside the social prescribing holistic model. The social prescribing holistic really is about providing direct access from the primary care network to a social prescribing link worker who looks at the person's whole needs, and there are no limit on the number of sessions, but it does depend on the person's needs. But there is a social prescribing medium that we must not forget. They often link to a physical activity. They link to a specific approach. It could be something that, for example, the Heeley Trust actually does a bit of work around this, and Charlie Hill's example, I think, potentially links into that. It probably links also into the green social prescribing that I'm going to talk about in a second. But actually what we're talking about here is something that's health focused, specifically around nutrition, diet. It could have been a health trainer in the past. We've seen those roles being really effective, but it is about trying to link somebody to a activity to improve their well-being. We know in our region that we've actually had 2 of the 7 in the country successful applications to the green social prescribing. And I think this is particularly relevant when we're talking about the work that the Heeley Trust has done with their outdoor activities. In terms of what Charlie was talking about, I think there's something about how do we connect people with the green space. How do we use what's available on our doorstep, but also trying to encourage people with small steps, because sometimes it really is about using what's available. Canals, rivers, we think about all the things that are outside. How can we encourage people to use them? What are the things that we can link people to? So we've got 4 of the pilot sort of test and learn sites. We've got 3 strands of the projects in terms of the national led evaluation, 7 in total. 2 of them are actually in Yorkshire and Humber. We've got 1 in South Yorkshire, Basildor, and 1 over in Humber Coast and Vale, doing great work. Similarly, with the kind of the Thriving Communities Fund, there are some current grant rounds that are going on, linking people to those green spaces. So I think really, in summary, what we're trying to do here is we're trying to look at what are the opportunities for the social prescription. What are the things that we can try and do to help people have somewhere to go? So brilliant listening to Stuart's work, particularly interested in the stuff that you're doing around the COVID cafes, actually. There's been a bit of an ask this week from the national team as to some examples of what are those social prescriptions that we know are addressing current problems. And I'll be in touch, Stuart, if that's all right, because it'd be great to share your example with the national team. It'd be great to know how the link worker is linking with your patient journey into those cafes, because we know there's a huge need there. So we're looking for examples of things like that all the time to share good practice and continue to kind of nurture the voluntary sector. And arts and creative health is so good for mental well-being. We know there's lots of evidence to support that. And I think it's about that patient journey. And why are we wanting to people on systems? As Stuart was saying, we want people like yourselves on those clinical systems so we can track the patients through their journey. And hopefully at the end of it, prove there's a positive outcome and ultimately, continue to support and invest in those areas. So I think, Ruth, I probably have summarised in terms of the slot I've got, the time, I've used the time that I've got. I think that's probably where I should stop sharing.
Thank you, David. That was brilliant. It's because it's just such a complex area, and I think the more that people understand the different levels and the different way it works, that's really helpful. Okay, right. Thanks very much, everybody who's spoken. Really brilliant. Tons of food for thought. I mean, probably too much in one session, but we did want to do an introduction. So if people would like to ask questions now, you're welcome to type them into the chat. And I've got a note of a few that have been asked during the session. So I'll start answering those. Please, anyone kind of just chip in if you feel that you've got an answer to the question and we've not, that we've not answered well enough. Actually, can I just, Dulcie, before, and I can see you've got your hand up, just before, can I just address the 2 questions that were in the chat? So someone asked about how an organisation can get involved. So, you know, as a practitioner, an arts organisation, I think it did get answered, but I just want to reiterate it because it's really important. Certainly in terms of the way that the trust works, we would just say, drop us an email, phone us, come and knock on the door. That's the best thing. Come and see where we are. Actually being in the community is really important. Come and be a participant on one of the wellbeing sessions that are being run here. Chat to people. We will always kind of stop and have a cup of tea with somebody who wants to. So yeah, actually being here physically, immersed in the community, just coming and spending some time is really, really the best start. I think in terms of measuring impact, I know there've been a few responses, but just to kind of clarify that, I think what Stuart was saying about video, film, measuring those kind of case studies is crucial. But, you know, the quantitative stuff is also important. So we've been working with the ONS measures of wellbeing. You can just Google them. And the Warwick Edinburgh mental wellbeing scale they've got some useful questions. I mean, they're more for link workers to use after they've been kind of having a few sessions or a few weeks or months with somebody. So it doesn't necessarily work off for a one-off activity or even for a series of workshops that you might be doing. But we've kind of adapted them and tweaked them so that they work, so that they are actually meaningful when we kind of, you know, feedback our evaluation. Okay, I think that numbers, I just wanted to say one final thing about numbers. This was lots of talk about small numbers, you know, being really important, and I totally agree with that. I think what's even more important is to make sure you've got the balance of scales, that sometimes you're working big, sometimes you're working small, because they achieve very different things. And that visibility in a neighbourhood and visibility of people joining in is also very important. Hope you wanted me to repeat the measuring impact tools, the Warwick Edinburgh mental wellbeing scale and the ONS for wellbeing questions. Okay, they're also written in the chat further.
Can I clarify? Sorry, go on.
Oh, can I clarify something as well? So you've got the have I written it down? So you've got the primary care networks. So is Heeley Trust an example of one of the primary care networks, or is it something different? Because it's just helpful to know.
Yeah, so the primary care network is a group of GP surgeries. So for us, ours is called Heeley Plus. Heeley Trust is a community anchor. So we're a small charity, community-based, working with people in place.
Okay. Right, okay. So it's not exactly the same as Heeley.
No, it just so happens that our names are really similar, but the other primary care networks, I think in Sheffield have got funny names, like there's one called Townships, and there's one called they've all got North in it. I don't know how they came up with the names.
You can find it by Googling them again. If you just put in primary care networks in Sheffield, there are 15 networks, and so your local surgery will be part of one of these networks.
But as a prescriber, as a provider of services, would you be best to contact the wellbeing organisations or the primary care networks?
Yeah, so this is what I was saying earlier about what we don't have the funding. So we have a link worker that's paid for by the NHS through the primary care network, and then we prescribe to things out in the community. So if you've got stuff you're doing that you want some of our patients to come to, then just tell us what's on. So like Ruth said, that's like, we get, you know, like all of us, our lives have become email-based, sat at a desk, and we all hate it. So don't send us an email unless you've already maybe phoned to say, yeah, expect an email. Just because stuff gets lost, doesn't it? If we know what's on and what you are up to and what you've got going on, then we can make sure that we're recommending it to people.
Yeah.
Leaflets in reception, you know, we're a community centre as well, so people pop by. We can put stuff on our website. We can give you shout outs on social media, that kind of stuff.
Yeah, brilliant. That's helpful.
Okay, thanks. We've got a few more questions in the chat. I just wanted to, I know that Dulcie's had a hand up right from the beginning. So do you want to ask your question and then we'll come back to the ones in the chat, Dulcie?
Hi, I just wanted to fit in some of the knowledge gaps that were mentioned. So just to flag with the Thriving Communities Fund, it is totally unique in its position because it has been actually funded by the National Academy for Social Prescribing mainly, with support from Arts Council England, Historic England, the Money and Pensions Service, Natural England, NHS Charities Together, NHS and Sport England. So it's the first of its kind where national partners have come together to create a funding stream for social prescribing partnerships specifically, to look at sustainable work. So there's two elements that I wanted to add in terms of information that could support your progression. One is around the integrated care systems. So there's 42 nationally, and the NHS is fulfilling the commitment to create community sector alliances within that integrated care system structure. And that's an opportunity for community organisations like Heeley Development Trust and people working in broader sectors, not only solely arts, to be able to work with that integrated care system and look at what that offer may mean. It would also enable consideration around commissioner influence and enabling decision making around future funding opportunity. So in terms of the Thriving Communities Fund, currently it's funded from March 21 to March 22. Some programmes are extending to June 22 because of COVID impact, but equally there is detail to come as to what the future holds for this level of work. So that integrated care system infrastructure is really key around how the voluntary sector may play a role. And then I also wanted to pick up in the chat, ultimately, we do expect every artist to be paid when fulfilling social prescribing work or any work that is undertaken, and the pay scales are in the chat. And equally, we recognise the difficulty of climate currently in terms of competition for funding, access for funding, and for artist support. And what we can offer at the moment is support not only for artists' mental health and unions and the parameters of freelance working, but equally look to progress the thinking. So what has happened for National Lottery project grants is that we are actually raising the funding outline now. It was up to 15k and it's gone up to 30k for the National Lottery project grants. So I just want to put out there that there are steps being taken currently to look at how we can further support. But equally, this is a whole systems approach that we're exploring, and that the reliability and the relationships that are developing through partnership working are going to co-create that sustainability rather than solely acting on our own as Arts Council or as Historic England or the National Academy of Social Prescribing to enable this work to happen. So that's what we're trying to unify, is that consideration. So I hope that makes sense.
Yeah, thank you. And I'd just like to clear up that that's exactly what I was saying. I was saying that I don't have funding for that necessarily. This fund itself, we did, and obviously this is all spent, but going forward, as the community hub organisation, we pull together from lots of different funding pots to provide a programme of services that has a holistic approach. I sometimes do get asked from not just practitioners of the arts, but I don't know, I had someone the other day ask if they could put on X, Y, and Z, and would I pay for it for the community? And what I was saying was, we as an organisation don't hold a pot to be able to do that without working with you to find some funding. And I think that's what I was trying to say, is that it's all about collaboration. I don't have the money, we don't have the money as Heeley Trust, but together, once we build a relationship with you guys, we can go and find somewhere. And that's really important because I think there's an assumption that because this is an NHS style project, that there's money there to pay for the patient to be able to access these things. There isn't, and that's the bit that's missing all over and across the country as well, I think.
Thanks, May, and thanks, Dulcie, for making it, just emphasising that holistic approach that the Arts Council's taking, which, it's a very joined up approach. Imogen, you asked a question about, could you just sort of describe that question for me, just so I'm absolutely clear what you mean?
I was aware that there are lots of companies in Sheffield doing lots of different activities with young people and adults, and I suppose it struck me how can we sort of join things up, because some are place-based, some are based on the fact that they're young people or older people or people with different needs. And I suppose I was interested, can the kind of thing you're doing at Heeley Trust be tracked across the city, or is this quite an unusual kind of setup?
There are other organisations like ours. We're the only one in the city that I think got money from this fund in particular. But as I say, we all pull together lots of different funding pots from lots of different places. Some of us have link workers. Some of us have funding from the Sheffield City Council under their People Keeping Well. The best place, and I will post it to start with, the best place to start, is with the People Keeping Well. They pay community organisations across Sheffield to be, oh, thank you, Diana, to be the local community hub for that area. It's based on postcode, so someone can go there, put their postcode in, and they will see who is the lead partner for that area. That lead partner then works with many other organisations, but that's a good place to start with that website that she's posted.
Thanks, May. Okay. So Anne, you'd asked the question about the best way of finding out about all the link workers around Sheffield. So May, am I right in thinking that the website with the People Keeping Well, all of those organisations, so it's people like Zest, Manor Castle Development Trust, Shipshape,
that's a good place to start. That'll give you an idea of who the lead partner is in that place. Not all of them have link workers, because the maps don't actually sort of match up. There's 15 PCNs and I can't remember how many PKWs, but it's a good start, yeah.
And then Trish, you asked about, as a freelance artist, the best way to get involved with delivering sessions. I think it's just sort of what I was saying at the beginning of this question and answer session is to contact these the community organisations like Heeley Trust, like Manor Castle Development Trust, and see what they're putting on. What are they putting on? What could you add value to? Could you partner up with somebody that's already delivering some wellbeing activity by co-delivering with them, and then maybe delivering yourself? It's there's no real sort of set answer to it. It is that building a relationship so that the link workers and the community organisation delivering the wellbeing activities, they build a relationship so that they partner up with you. So it's like, similarly, we're kind of working with United We Climb to do the climbing, and they kind of got in touch with us and said, we want to do much more inclusive climbing. How do we go about it? So we just sort of worked together to work out how we could put on some sessions in a way that they couldn't on their own and we couldn't on our own. So it's building partnerships. It's a really it's quite a time-consuming process. So yes, absolutely, you need to make sure that you're paid when you're actually delivering the activity. Absolutely everybody does in all of the work we're doing. So yeah, Trish, you said you didn't want to volunteer. That's fine, but it's worth just signing up, coming and being a participant on some of the activities that are going on. Then you get a sense of the profile of the people that are coming, the people that are delivering, what kinds of parts of yourself you need to use to make your sessions work, all that kind of thing. Any other questions in the chat that I'm missing? No, I think that's it. Does anybody else have any final questions? I just, because as a final sort of move, I just wanted to share with you just a list of 4 kind of really key resources of places to find out more about social prescribing. So I'll just share that screen quickly. The problem is when you look online, there's absolutely loads of information about social prescribing. So this might help you. There we go, useful resources. So the National Academy of Social Prescribing, which is kind of still only a couple of years old, and we're obviously involved in supporting the setting up the Thriving Communities programme. You can join their Thriving Communities network as an artist or an organisation. You don't have to be one of the kind of funder awardees. Lots of information on there. Obviously, Arts Council England in their Let's Create strategy and in the delivery plan, and on the website information about social prescribing and their increasing commitment to it. And Culture, Health and Wellbeing Alliance. They've got fantastic information on their website. And the thing that actually inspired me to kind of try and put this event together was the Arts and Culture Social Prescribing Mythbuster produced by London Arts and Health, which is really a fantastic little publication. And again, you can just access that by Googling it. Okay, right. So I just wanted to round up by saying thanks very much indeed, everybody. All of the speakers who've spoken today, thanks very much. May, Charlie, Tom, Stuart and David. And if we'll kind of go away and have a think about what might be needed next for Sheffield, and sort of make more of those bridges between creative practitioners and link workers. In the meantime, can you, Lou, do you mind pasting into the chat the feedback? We've just got a really short Google form. If you don't mind filling that in just before the end of the session, that would be great. Lou, have you got that?
Yeah, I've done it a few times.
Fantastic, you've just pasted it in. That's brilliant. It'll just help us know where to go next. This has been recorded and it'll be shared on Heeley Trust Community Hub YouTube next week, but I'll send it as a link to everybody who was here. Thanks very much for coming. If you've got any questions specifically about, anything that came up and you weren't quite sure, you didn't have a chance to ask a question, do email me at ruth.n@heeleydevtrust.com. Okay, thank you very much, everybody.